informal settlements in Kenya hosts approximately 2.5 million slum dwellers, representing about 60% of Nairobi population. And with high prevalence of food insecurity in these areas, conversations surrounding urban agriculture could not have come at a better time. Urban agriculture. Could this just be the solution to the food insecurity in slums here in Kenya? In this episode, we explore the potential of urban agriculture. But first, let's get our facts and figures right. According to Kenya Institute for Public Policy Research Analysis, around 30% of Kenyan population is suffering from food insecurity and malnutrition. Kenya was ranked 86th out of the 117 countries in the 2019 Global Hunger Index. Today, food insecurity is a significant problem throughout Kenya. According to a report by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics and University of Nairobi African Women's Studies Center, 14.5% of Nairobians suffer from low food security and 11.7% are chronically food insecure. A study from the African Population Health Research Center shows that in Nairobi's poorest neighborhoods, only 1 in 5 households is food secure. Farming today in an urban setup calls for innovation. This is because of the small sizes of land available for urban farming. Now, in their own creative and innovative ways, some young people here in Jiru Ward, Kasarani constituency, are doing what they can to curb the food security crisis in this area. And here is their story.
My name is Gregory Kimani. I'm the CEO of City Shamba, which is an initiative that is trying to present urban areas as part of the solution to hunger, malnutrition, and food insecurity. So we saw it fit to have an urban agriculture resource and information center where now people can come in, they can learn, they can do experiential learning on how they can utilize the limited spaces they have. May it be on a balcony, may it be on a rooftop to produce food. First for your family consumption, and then maybe if you have surplus, we can do food sharing or you can generate income from that. So that's how the Urban Agriculture Resource and Information Center came in, where people, groups, urban communities from primary school kids all the way to university, because there's topics which are dealing in urban landscaping and agriculture, educating women group, youth groups, educating individuals. They can come here, do some experiential learning, and then go and implement or practice whatever they've gotten from here, so that we can start dealing with the perception, show that this is something that actually can work, and then from there they can start practicing it. And it's also important that as a resource center, apart from educating, we are guided by our motto, which is educate, enable, empower. So apart from educating, where we have the curriculum which we take the communities through, we also enable people to start this urban farming through provision of inputs. So it will not be something sustainable if we can just educate and people cannot come and adapt these technologies. So the resource center was meant to educate and then to enable people adapt and start practicing urban agriculture. And by enabling, this is provision of resources such as seedlings, provision of labor, and through that we've been able to employ so many young people from our community who would have otherwise had nothing as an income generating activity.
From a humble beginning, the group has grown in leaps and bounds, and walking through the demo farm, it's evident that urban agriculture has the potential to provide healthy food to the city's most vulnerable communities.
We've seen people dying from food insecurity, and the problem ranges from food availability, food accessibility, food safety. So from the definition of food security, you cannot be food secure even if it's available, yet the food that you're consuming is not safe. We've seen from investigative journalism how even meat from supermarkets is being laced with dangerous chemicals so that we can extend the lifetime of the food. We've seen people growing food using sewage water, which can contribute to heavy metals, and that is not safe for human consumption. We've seen other farmers using very dangerous chemicals, pesticides. So basically we are not food secure. As much as people might have food in their home, it is available, but if that food has been grown under circumstances that are dangerous, that means that we are not yet food secure as a country and as a continent. Yeah, so the situation is very dire, and still people go to bed hungry, especially here in urban areas. We know that people here depend on the income that they get to buy food. So these and most people, around 80% of people here depend on, especially in slums, depend on the daily wages to put a meal on their table or to provide for their families. So, and food being the most basic, this means that if maybe for a day you lack the income, that means that for that day you are not going to get food. So lack of money directly translates to lack of food for a family to put it on your table. Yeah.
Well, like any other farming venture, City Shamba has not lacked its fair share of challenges.
We need resources to run the place, like water. Water was a challenge and still a challenge.
We saw that urban areas, the limiting factors, as much as the perception was still negative, the limiting factor is that there's no space for people to do commercial or to grow food. That was a challenge, and then the other challenge was that the perception was that agriculture is for rural areas. Agriculture is for the old people. People over here have not been practicing urban agriculture. They've not been brought up to consider agriculture as a career. So when we came, the idea was to look onto how we can bring food closer to the people. And one factor was that since we cannot do it commercially ourselves, we did not have a very huge land or space where we can provide food commercially so that we can feed our community. In fact, what we have here cannot even satisfy the demand. So we saw it fit to have an urban agriculture resource and information center. One of the revenue streams that we have is training. And we have schools coming here, we have groups, and then from there, from training, we have setting up of these gardens in people's homes. So innovative gardens like the hanging gardens, these staircase gardens. So we have people who are interested in having these gardens in their home. And that is one of the major revenue streams that we currently have. We get you the garden, we come see your space, do a quotation, the structures that can fit, and then we make them for you, and then we come and install the gardens in your home, planted and everything ready.
City Shamba has big ideas of expansion and venturing into new projects such as aquaculture.
This was through a partnership or support by the county government Department of Fisheries. In the beginning it has been challenging, but at least they built a greenhouse for us, and we have 8 tanks. Each tank accommodates 100 catfish, and it's also like a demo farm for fish farming, aquaculture. So it can also generate income that can be used to make the initiative sustainable.
It's work in progress, and whether the project will meet the expectations, only time will tell. For now, it's more than giving people fish, rather teaching them how to fish.
Tukipata an opportunity ya kuweka garden kila ward, that is our vision. And number 2, ni kuona kila home there's a kitchen garden. When you have a kitchen garden, you have the power to you have the power of the power ya chakula in your hands. You have control over what you put in your mouth. Unajua, you might have a lot of money kwa pesa kwa mfuko, but if you don't have control of what you eat, you know they say what you eat ni either poison ama dawa. So imagine you have money to purchase the food, but you really don't know kwenye food inatoka. So we envision kila Nairobi, kila home kukuwe na ka kitchen garden kadogo tu ka vegetables, ambapo utakosa tu herbs tuwili tutatu pale kwa hiyo kitchen garden yako. So that's our vision, yeah.
Agriculture, first, it's all about passion. You can start with very minimal resources, things at your disposal. One thing that we encourage maybe like a youth group or a women to do is to use the community-based asset development, trying to see whatever you have and using it to make a difference. The COVID story showed us and everyone else that these pandemics are inevitable, and anytime there can come a disruption in the food system. Transportation of food from where we used to get them, that is from rural areas to urban areas, was affected. That means food was not available. So for us, we came up with the idea of grow your own food using the limited space that you have. Like when you look at our resource center, we have timbers. These are pallets that maybe they are waste in various go-downs and companies. We go there and try to get them. You can find tires being used as grow beds. You can find plastics, containers being used as grow beds. So these are things that we are trying to be innovative, the group that we have, trying to be innovative, trying to see what can work, and then utilizing it.
Experts have argued that in order to achieve food security for all, especially with the continuing growth of urban population around the world, there is need to focus on the 4 dimensions of food security. That is availability, access, utilization, and stability. So, how viable is this City Shamba project here in Jiro Ward, Kasarani constituency? Let's talk to the experts. Our expert in this episode is Ricky Aguda, the chairman at Society of Crop Agribusiness Advisors of Kenya, SOCA. SOCA is a registered membership-based society for professionals providing advisory and consultancy services for crops-based agribusinesses. Aguda is a dedicated and committed agronomist and sustainable agriculture expert with over 15 years' experience in agriculture policy advocacy, agro-enterprise development, and technical capacity building support. Aguda is also proficient in the design and implementation of sustainable farming practices campaigns, training management, and export business. As a certified public trainer, Aguda has assignment experiences in Eastern and Southern Africa and the Caribbean. Thank you so much, Ricky, for finding time for us. What's the potential of urban farming, especially in Nairobi?
That's a good question, and it's not that easy to quantify. But I would say that based on its very basic definition, that there is a lot of potential for urban farming, because all it takes for urban farming is just availability of small spaces and of course the necessary inputs in this sense being of course the seedlings, the planting material, some of these fertilizers or crop protection products, and most importantly water, you know. So anywhere where there is space and one has availability or access to those particular inputs, then definitely the potential is there. Added to that, there is a lot of technology, all for a long while. Our thoughts and appreciation around farming has been that it happens on a flat surface. But with urban farming, what we've seen is that you can go vertical, you can do production even without soil. Concepts that have been used in the value chains for quite a while, but they're now coming into the space of urban farming. So there is a lot of potential. I would say the most critical things is the ability to tap into technology in order to then utilize the spaces that you have well, but also then more critically, the very critical issue of accessing suitable inputs. And where I'm talking of inputs, I would be zeroing in on issues like the quality of water. When you look at a lot of the streams and rivers that we would say we tap and get water in, and there's a lot of pollution. So when you come into an urban farming setup, you really have to consider very carefully where you get in your water for purposes of irrigating the crops that you're growing.
Touching on food safety, when you look at the urban farming that is being practiced today, are we safe?
It's a matter of, are we transparent? To the degree that we are transparent, you can then say how safe we are. Why I say this is that food safety is principally about self-regulation. Self-regulation in the sense that whoever is carrying out the activity is very conscious that they must do things within certain parameters. If you try and approach it from a policing angle, then definitely with urban farming, it's not possible. You're doing this in your backyard. No one will come and inspect your backyard to see whether you put in, untreated manure or you used sewage water. Nobody will do that. It is actually the grower or the producer who has that consciousness in them that then determines. Now, to address the issue of safety, it then becomes a matter of a very simple concept that we refer to as traceability. The consumer must be able to ask and get some basic information that tells them where was this food produced. Yeah? And in the course of finding out where it was produced, it is easy to then query how was it produced. Because whether you do it in an urban setup or on a large scale farm, there are critical parameters, record keeping for all your inputs, tracking how the produce has moved, in terms of who has handled it. Because some of the issues that come up, even where production has been done and there are no problems at all, arise from simple parameters like a worker who was unwell, and should not have been at work, but has come into work, and then because of some stomach upset or something, they contaminate the produce, and it was absolutely fine. But you can imagine that goes to the market, and the next thing is, you have an incidence of food safety. So sometimes the assumption is made that it's just the chemicals or pesticides that may account for issues of food safety, but a lot of it is about handling. And in this case now, when you come back to urban farming, as I said again, it's about transparency. To the degree that those who produce in those setups are transparent and they show and document what they are doing, then we can say we are safe.
And now on to something else, and this is about youth participation in agribusiness or agriculture. How can we make agriculture lucrative for our youth?
That's a hard question. But we need to think outside the box. I think when we say agriculture, the typical thought that comes into the mind of a young person is still largely seeing, someone with a hoe digging in the ground, and that says, you have to wait for the rain, you have to wait, do things and wait for like 3, 4, 5 months before you see a return for your investment. But I think it is about demystifying agriculture, and more so for the youth, the opportunities in agriculture. Just focusing on the opportunities, and the more we put out the messages about the opportunities, because now in the space of agriculture we look at things from a value chain point of view. And when you look at any value chain, you look at, from start to finish, what happens in that value chain. And that is all agriculture. Production is just one aspect of the value chain and one aspect of agriculture. So when you're talking to the youth or reaching out to them, we need to make them very aware. What are those small opportunities that you have that can make you money quickly? It's by understanding those dynamics and saying, okay, what can I do here to make a component that is important for the value chain available, and then monetizing it. And of course, in the course of doing all of that, there is definitely the need for them to understand the regulatory framework, to understand the basic business requirements so that they don't operate outside the expected norms. Yeah.
And still on that topic on youth and agriculture, when you look at these youth groups and the way they are doing urban farming, what role can other stakeholders and even organizations such as your organization, what can they do to support youth in agribusiness?
I will actually speak of what is being done, because there is a lot that is being done. But what we find as a challenge is that typically, even within the youth groups, there is still how can I put it? There's still that feeling or desire to work in isolation. Yeah. But whereas a lot of the support that is available is tailored to work with what you'd call a critical mass that is commercially viable. I give you an example. If you're doing, say, a training on mushroom farming and you only get one participant, in a day, of course you will charge them. What you charge them would be a premium, But when you get a group organizing itself and bringing like 30-40 people for the same one-day training, the cost per person comes, it comes down. And that's what many organizations try to do. We put out programs, for example, as soccer, we've created content on just to demystify what it takes to succeed in agribusiness. It's available virtually. Come to the side of financial institutions. Access to finance is primarily about records, because records are what say what you do. So when it comes to what they do as business, if they basically do the business without keeping the records, then of course it's the ability to scale up is diminished, And we have all these applications now with mobile payment solutions. So the tools are actually there. What I would say is critical is for youth who are entering into agriculture to identify how is it that they can come together, so that they actually break that cost of accessing these tools and resources, and then of course identify key partners to work with. The reason we exist as a society is that we bring together many different types of expertise. So instead of reaching out or looking for one specific expert, you come to us and you can then access, a whole pool. So working with critical partners makes it easy for youth to then tap into these opportunities.
And that marks the end of this particular episode. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. My name remains Elijah Mwangi.